The rain fell in torrents that night over Eastcrest, a worn-down corner of Atlanta where cracked sidewalks became small streams and neon signs flickered like distant memories. In this unforgiving downpour, the city's few bright lights stood as beacons against despair. One such light shone from a modest diner named Ivy's Place, its sign buzzing softly as if pleading for warmth and attention. Inside the diner, Amara Johnson worked alone after closing time. For 12 long hours, she had served customers with quiet resilience, a steady presence in a world that often forgot her name. Her hands, calloused yet gentle, had wiped away the day's traces of spilled coffee and life's small mishaps. As the rest of the staff hurried home from their shifts, Amara lingered, drawn by an inexplicable need to care even when no one was watching. It was then that she saw him. Outside, in the pale glow of a flickering street lamp, a small figure caught her eye. Squinting through the rain-streaked window, Amara saw a boy in a wheelchair huddled on the wet pavement. His frail form was wrapped in a threadbare blanket that did little to stave off the relentless cold. The child's dark hair clung to his forehead, and his tiny hands trembled as he squeezed the remnants of a worn fabric around him. Without a second thought, Amara's heart propelled her into action. She hurried to the door, pushing it open against the lashing wind. The moment she stepped out, the rain blasted her face and shoulders, but that did not slow her pace. Her boots splashed through puddles as she made her way directly to the boy. With determined calm, she reached out and gently grasped the wheelchair's handles, easing the child inside to the sanctuary of the warm diner. Within moments, the soothing heat of Ivy's Place enveloped them both. Amara wrapped a soft towel around the boy's shivering shoulders and rolled him carefully toward a booth near the old radiator. In that quiet instant, as the boy's wide eyes took in the comforting surroundings, the storm outside seemed momentarily forgotten. Without uttering a word, she scurried to the back of the diner and began her familiar ritual, pulling out a fresh loaf of sourdough and crafting a golden grilled cheese sandwich, the kind her grandmother once made to heal weary hearts. Alongside it, a bowl of hot tomato soup was prepared, its steam rising in delicate tendrils that promised nourishment and warmth. The child, his features soft but etched with fatigue, ate slowly, each bite a testament to survival in harsh conditions. In his silence, Amara read the story of neglect and vulnerability that needed no words at all. And though she offered this small kindness without asking questions, fate was busy observing every move. Across the street, parked under a dim streetlight in a sleek black car, sat Dorian Miles, a man whose presence in Atlanta was known only to a few. Dorian, a tech visionary and billionaire whose empire had been built on algorithms and calculated risks, was watching. His eyes were fixed on the diner, tracking each of Amara's compassionate actions. In that moment, the carefully controlled world of high finance and power paused, replaced by an emotion that could not be measured in dollars, genuine human kindness. For the boy in the booth, Leo, as he would come to be known, was not simply a random soul wandering the storm, he was Dorian's only child, lost to circumstance earlier that night. Dorian's heart, used to tracking numbers and outcomes, felt an unexpected stir of conflicted emotion. Here was a stranger, a woman with nothing to gain, offering care purely for what was right. His guarded nature found itself challenged by her unassuming goodness. And it was that very goodness that, unbeknownst to Amara, was about to alter the course of her life. As the diner's warmth and soft light cocooned the rescued child, the rain outside continued its relentless rhythm. Minutes later, the heavy door opened once more, admitting a figure cloaked in subtle menace, a woman dressed in a simple hoodie and jeans, her blonde hair hidden beneath a worn baseball cap. With an assured gait that belied her casual attire, she stepped into the light. Her eyes, cool and calculating, immediately found the boy. There was something unnerving in the precision of her movements, a rehearsed quality that made Amara's instincts tingle with caution. Though no words were exchanged between them, the silent tension was palpable. The visitor moved toward the child with smooth determination, her presence disruptive in the cozy atmosphere of the diner. The child's expression shifted, a trace of uncertainty passed over his face as he was gently maneuvered from the booth, as if guided by an unseen hand. For a brief, heart-wrenching moment, Amara's internal alarm bells rang, but the echoes of history in her life, of situations where questions led only to trouble, kept her from intervening. Instead, Amara's response was quiet and measured. With the careful deliberateness of someone who had learned when silence was the better guardian, she reached into a nearby cookie jar and pulled out a warm chocolate chip cookie. Wrapping it softly in wax paper, she pressed it into the boy's hand with a gesture that spoke of both comfort and farewell. In that transient exchange, a gentle smile briefly flickered on the boy's lips, a fragile spark amid the storm of the night. Outside again, the sleek black car stirred. Dorian Miles rose from within, rain slicking his impeccably tailored coat as he approached the scene. His gaze, now more intense than before, tracked every movement, from the woman's calculated departure to the subtle, bittersweet smile on the boy's face. Inside his car, his trusted aide, Leah, who had accompanied him on the night's errand, murmured quietly that Amara's actions were not like those of others, that her kindness was real and unswayed by ulterior motives. Dorian's jaw set in quiet resolve as he reached for his phone. "Alma," he said curtly when the call connected. "I want everything on Amara Johnson. Get me a full background check on her, tonight, no details spared." His tone held the chill of someone used to dictating outcomes, yet beneath it, there was a hint of inner conflict. Back in the diner, after the departure of the intruder, a heavy stillness settled over the warm interior. Amara, though exhausted, felt the weight of what had just transpired. Her only thought was for the child she had rescued from a night of relentless cold. Yet, somewhere deep within, there was an inkling, a subtle knowing, that this simple act would reverberate far beyond the warmth of a diner. Hours later, as the storm continued its tireless assault on the city, Amara returned to her modest apartment. The night's events played over in her mind like a silent movie, the shivering boy, the uninvited visitor, and the cold eyes of a billionaire watching from afar. As she stepped through the door, a quiet knock startled her. It was unexpected at this late hour. Heart pounding, she glanced through the peephole to see a man standing in the dim hallway, a man in an elegant black coat, broad-shouldered and immovable, with eyes that bore into her with unwavering intensity. Her pulse quickened as she hesitated before opening the door. The stranger's voice, deep and measured, called out, "I don't know you, but you know my son." His tone was calm, yet laden with authority. Amara's mind raced to piece together the fragments of the earlier night. The realization dawned slowly, painful yet undeniable: this man was Dorian Miles. His presence was no accident. He had come not only to retrieve his son but perhaps also to offer an unexpected proposition. Dorian's gaze never wavered as he explained in a measured cadence that he had watched the entire ordeal unfold from afar. He recounted the details in a voice that carried no warmth, only the cold assertion of facts. He revealed that the boy, Leo, was indeed his only son, and he had been searching for him after the caregiver had lost track in the chaos of the storm. Then, as if turning the page of fate, Dorian extended an envelope toward Amara. It was thick, heavy with promise and consequence. The man's tone softened fractionally as he said that the envelope contained an offer, a job at his company, Caldwell Industries. The proposition was simple in its essence yet profound in its implications: join him, work closely with him, and use her innate compassion and people skills to bridge the gap between corporate coldness and the human element often lost amidst profit and power. Amara's mind reeled. The idea of stepping from the warmth of a diner into the unyielding realm of high finance and corporate negotiations seemed almost surreal. For her, the notion of a job that paid six figures was as distant as the comforting glow of that neon sign outside Ivy's place. Yet as her hands trembled while holding the envelope, she sensed that this was more than charity. It was an acknowledgement of something that money could never purchase, a recognition of human decency and strength. Dorian, his face inscrutable, explained that he did not extend this offer out of pity, but because her actions had shown him that there are debts in life that transcend monetary value. Helping his son, without any thought for reward, had proved that her spirit was one of authenticity, something that even a man as ruthless as he could not entirely ignore. For hours afterward, Amara found herself alone with the envelope on her rickety kitchen table. The paper felt heavy with promise, yet it also carried the weight of uncertainty. Memories of her hard-fought days, of nights spent shivering in homes that barely provided shelter, mingled with the gentle warmth of her compassion for Leo. Her resolve was tempered by years of surviving in a world that often offered nothing for free. And in that silent moment, she realized that accepting his offer would mean stepping into an entirely new realm, a world of power, privilege, and relentless expectations. As the rain subsided into a gentle drizzle, the next day dawned over Eastcrest with a hesitant optimism. Though the city bore scars from the night before, the soft glow of morning light brought with it the promise of transformation. Amara, still clutching the envelope, resolved to consider the unexpected path laid out before her. In the back of her mind, she knew that sometimes one small act of kindness spirals into a cascade of changes that can redefine a life. Over the next few weeks, Amara's life began to oscillate between two stark realities. By day, she continued her work at Ivy's place, serving comfort food to weary souls in a humble corner of the city. By night, however, she found herself drawn into a mysterious new world, one that involved long meetings in stark boardrooms, presentations that contrasted sharply with the warm chaos of her diner, and encounters with polished executives whose eyes rarely betrayed emotion. At Caldwell Industries, she met people whose lives were measured in percentages and profit margins, and in that sterile environment, her compassion became both a curiosity and a challenge. Dorian Miles, ever reserved and calculating, maintained an air of quiet command. But behind his ice-blue eyes lay a growing respect for Amara's resolve. In one of the first meetings, as she listened intently to proposals about overseas outsourcing and profit margins, she found herself speaking up. With calm yet unyielding conviction, she argued that in seeking cost-cutting measures, the company risked alienating not just its workforce but the very foundation of trust that kept a business human. Her carefully chosen words, delivered in a voice steady and clear, resonated in the conference room. For a moment, the polished suits and dismissive nods softened, if only for an instant, into faces that recognized the truth in her words. It was in that moment that Amara realized something vital: the transition between worlds need not erase who she truly was. Her humble beginnings, the compassion that drove her to help a shivering boy on a stormy night, these remained her core. Even as she navigated the labyrinth of corporate negotiations and high-stakes decisions, her innate empathy shone through. And soon, she began to transform Caldwell Industries from within, championing ethical practices and encouraging the company to consider the long-term human costs of its decisions. Throughout this new journey, Amara never lost sight of the child who had sparked this entire chain of events. Leo, now safe and gradually recovering from the ordeal, began to thrive under the protective umbrella of his father's resources and, more importantly, the lasting impression of one act of kindness. Dorian's demeanor softened whenever he spoke of his son, and his occasional, almost imperceptible glances toward Amara spoke volumes about a debt he could never repay. In a pivotal board meeting weeks later, as the company debated the merits of an aggressive cost-cutting plan that would jeopardize thousands of jobs, Amara stood before a room of skeptical executives. With quiet confidence, she presented detailed data, a comprehensive analysis showing that short-term gains from outsourcing would lead to long-term instability. Her words, measured and incisive, cut through the buzz of corporate jargon. She reminded everyone that success was not solely defined by spreadsheets, but by the loyalty and well-being of the people who worked to build that success. As she concluded, silence fell. And then, one by one, nods of reluctant agreement appeared on the faces of even the most cynical board members. That day marked the beginning of a subtle but profound transformation at Caldwell Industries. Over time, ethical labor policies were instituted, programs that fostered mentorship for those from underprivileged backgrounds took root, and partnerships with minority-owned businesses began to flourish. It wasn't an overnight revolution, but it was a steady shift in the culture of a company that had once been governed solely by the relentless pursuit of profit. In parallel to these changes, Amara's personal life blossomed in unexpected ways. While she continued to serve patrons at Ivy's Place, every interaction now carried with it the quiet assurance of someone who had experienced a profound turning point. A moment when a single act of genuine care rippled through her life, unlocking doors she never thought would open. Months later, on a bright day that starkly contrasted the stormy night when it all began, a ceremony was held at a newly built community center. The center, dedicated to providing education and training for underserved youth, bore a plaque that read, "The Johnson Miles Foundation." Standing proudly at its entrance was a banner adorned with both names, a symbol of an unlikely partnership, forged not from convenience but from compassion and resolve. In the gathering crowd, Leo, now a bright and determined young man, walked across the stage in his wheelchair with the determination of one who had overcome so much. His eyes shone with pride as he accepted a diploma and a certificate of achievement, milestones he had nearly thought unattainable. Dorian, standing among other dignitaries, allowed himself a rare smile, a soft expression that betrayed a paternal tenderness. Amara, once a humble waitress who simply wanted to help a suffering child on a rainy night, now stood as vice president of corporate strategy at Caldwell Industries. Her journey from the neon-lit floors of a modest diner to the lofty heights of boardrooms was a living testament that a single compassionate act could redefine destiny. At the celebration, as speeches were given and accolades exchanged, the atmosphere was thick with emotion. Amara's heart swelled with memories of that fateful night, the rain, the neon glow, the shivering child who had unknowingly sparked a revolution of kindness. And as her eyes met Leo's, who looked up at her with a mixture of admiration and playful defiance, she remembered that every hardship had led her here. In a quiet, heartfelt moment away from the bustling crowd, she addressed the assembled guests in a soft, yet resolute tone. In a world ruled by power and profit, she said, there still exists the quiet, transformative strength of kindness. Every life we touch creates ripples far beyond our understanding. May we always choose to care, even when it costs us everything. Her words, simple yet profound, resonated deeply with everyone present. For in that moment it was clear that true wealth was not measured by bank accounts or market shares, but by the compassion that binds us together through the storms of life. As the day drew to a close and the crowd dispersed into the gentle embrace of twilight, Amara took a final, reflective walk around the community center. The soft hum of evening filled the air, and in that silence, she recalled the long, rain-soaked night that had started it all. A quiet gratitude filled her soul, a gratitude for the courage to step into the storm, for the risks taken in kindness, and for the unexpected rewards that followed. Before she left, she paused at the entrance and addressed those who might be listening, a silent, yet sincere invitation to every viewer. Have you ever experienced a moment where a single act of kindness changed everything? If so, let your story be heard. Share your heart in the comments, and know that even the smallest light can guide someone out of darkness. And so the story continued, one of transformation, redemption, and the timeless reminder that in a world often dominated by cold logic and ruthless ambition, the warmth of compassion is the most powerful force of all. Thank you for listening to this story. If it moved you even a little, please like and subscribe for more narratives that remind us of our shared humanity. Your engagement and support help these stories thrive. Until we meet again, keep spreading kindness, for it is in those small gestures that greatness is born.